Well, good morning, guys. Today is 2 days before Thanksgiving, but I'm not doing any of the Thanksgiving meal. We're going to my mom's. Um, but what I do every year for my mom's Christmas and her birthday, I try to make them two different things, um, is I give her some of my home canned food, and I also, bake bread or whatever and give to her. So today, I've got a lot of stuff planned in the kitchen, but I'm going to start with making pumpkin bread. I make a yeast pumpkin bread that I really like. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to make what everybody thinks of when they do pumpkin bread or if I'm going to do the yeasted bread. We'll see. But what I'm going to start out with is my home canned pumpkin. And just to show you guys, this was done in October of 17. Canned goods, if they're stored properly and have a good seal, they're good for many years. I know that the powers to be will say 18 months, but I keep mine in a cool, dark place in my pantry, and I often check my seals, and they're good. As long as your seal is good, your food is good. So, this is one of my Tatler lids. I think you've seen me open these before. And it's the plastic lid with the rubber ring. Reusable. I probably have used most of these at least 10 times. I love them. So, what I'm going to do first is drain the water off of the pumpkin. And then I'm going to pour it into I've got a Ninja. Okay, I ran it through my Ninja just as it was. It makes a beautiful puree. And it makes about 2 cups. A quart jar will make 2 cups, and I use 2 cups of pumpkin in my pumpkin pie and anything else that I make typically. Okay, I thought I'd go over my ingredients first before I get started. First of all, if you can use canned pumpkin. And I think there's 2 cups in a can. But if you've ever tried fresh pumpkin and cooked it down, holy cow, you'll never go back to canned pumpkin. I can taste a tin can in that canned stuff. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead. It calls for 1.5 cups of puree, but I'll probably use both cups because that's what I do. I don't follow recipes very well. I have a 1/2 cup of warm water here with my yeast. It also takes 3/4 a cup of milk, which I don't have out yet, but I'll get it out. A 1/2 cup of brown sugar. I store all of my spices in mason jars. I used Tupperware for years and years and years. Many, many years. They were wedding gifts. I sold them because they were vintage, and I do prefer the jars. Then it calls, well, I guess I'll do the liquid. 2 eggs, and these are farm fresh eggs, of course, even though I've sold my chickens. I'm blessed to have someone that I can buy eggs from. And then a teaspoon of salt. And I make my own spice mixes. So this is pumpkin pie spice mix. I'm getting kind of low, and with the holidays, I'm sure I'll need more. So I'll show you how I make it. And then the flour, basically, it doesn't say how much flour. You're going to knead the flour in. But this is my whole wheat flour from our homegrown wheat that I've grind. I'm obviously going to be making more of that today. And then I used about half whole wheat and half all-purpose. And I buy the unbleached flour. We all get enough chlorine in our diet. We don't need it in our flour too. So it also calls for chopped walnuts and pepitas, or pumpkin seeds. So anyway, I'm going to start mixing this up, and get the rest of my ingredients in order, and then I'll show you how I do it. Okay, guys, I've got it all dumped in the pan, and I did forget to mention that it calls for 2 tablespoons of melted butter, but of course I'm going to use my home rendered lard. I use butter or lard for everything. So what I'm going to do now, I've got everything in here except the flour and the nuts. And I will mix these up real good with a whisk. And that's what it looks like. Like I said, I have my own way of doing things. And so I'm lazy. I don't sift all my dry ingredients together and all that. I just dump it all in there and mix it up. Now I'm going to start adding the flour. Okay, this is my whole wheat flour, and I did find that it says it takes 6.5 to 7 cups of flour. And to honest to goodness, guys, I'm just going to dump that in there. I don't know how much there is, and I'm sorry. So I'm going to work this part of it in with my whisk. Okay, here's the consistency of what I have now. Probably maybe the consistency of a quick bread, but remember, this isn't a quick bread, this is a yeast bread. So, here we go again, guys, sorry, but I just dump a little flour in there, and I will continue to mix it in. I've got a spatula now, just to kind of work it in until I can't do it anymore in the bowl. And then I'll come back and show you how I knead it in. I also need to get my nuts chopped up and pepitas ready to go in there, because it's the nuts and the pumpkin seeds that really give this great flavor. Alright, it calls for 1.5 cups chopped walnuts and 1/2 cup of pepitas. I like the pepitas, so I usually do 1/2 and 1/2, just because. And if I want to add more, I do. If I don't want as much, I do whatever I want. Right now, the dough is pretty thick. I'm still going to work it just a little bit more in the bowl, but now I'm going to add my nuts so I can work them in. Chop your nuts to whatever consistency you want, whether you like them coarse or fine, whatever. Mine are however they come out of the food chopper. Okay, what I do is I have an old linen tablecloth. I'm not fancy, and I certainly would never use a yellow tablecloth, so it makes a perfect pastry cloth. I didn't used to use pastry cloths until I started watching a few other people, and boy, talk about an easy cleanup. Anyway, I'm scraping all of this out of the bowl. I have a pretty good amount of flour that I'm putting it in, or on, or however you want to word that. And since it's easier, and I need it anyway, I opened up a bag of flour. And I'll just work that in, and now I'm going to sit here and just work the flour in. I've been doing this for so many years now, and you noticed I don't measure anything, that I just keep kneading it, working it in, and when it's no longer sticky, then I will start the kneading process once I get the flour worked into it. And a little old lady, many years ago, said, "You knead your bread until it's as smooth as a baby's butt." And now how cute was that? I'm going to keep kneading and working in my flour, and I'll be back. Okay, guys, I got all the flour worked in and kneaded. I got a clean bowl, and I put some of my good old lard in there, you know, kind of greased the bowl, put it down, flipped it over, and now I'm going to set it in a warm spot. Normally what I do is I put it in my oven with just the oven light on. But I'm going to cover it up and with a towel and just set it here on my stovetop because I've got that experiment going on in the oven right now, which kind of looks like a flop. We'll see. Okay guys, our bread has raised at least double, and I'm going to pour it out onto this and just kind of punch it down a little bit and let it rest. Okay guys, my dough has been setting for about 5 minutes, and while it's setting I'm greasing my pans with, guess what? My home rendered lard. So I do not use full-size loaf pans ordinarily. Maybe it's psychological, but I use these mini loaves. That way I can say I had 2 pieces of toast for breakfast, when in actuality it was probably 1. But just to give you an idea of the difference in the pans, and I believe this is a regular full-size pan. I rarely use this one. I have used it. Anyway, all my pans are greased. So the next thing I do is I just cut off a chunk of the dough. And I used to spend so much time trying to shape the perfect loaf, and I would have myself so frustrated. And I learned if I just put it in there, I would roll it out and make everything, but not anymore. So there's one. But what I do, if you didn't see that, is here's my dough, and I just kind of fold it into itself. Fold the ends over. And then I place it in the pan and just kind of shape it into the pan so it fits in the bottom. And I probably could have put a little bit more dough in that one, but that's okay. Another reason I use the mini loaves is it's perfect for gifts. Oh, and there's another one. And y'all figured out, I've told you many times I don't measure, so I'm just kind of doing the old by gosh and by golly. And shaping it. And there we go. I'll get them all, the rest of them. For those of you that like your loaves all to be the exact same size, you'll want to measure or weigh them. This one here is probably going to be sticking 3 inches above the pan. This one here may not even make it to the top. But right now it's just whatever I have, it all tastes the same. So I'm going to let these raise until they're about ready. And I'll show you another little trick that I do when I get ready to bake. My bread has risen, and I know it could raise a bit more, but here's a little trick that I've learned. I put it in the cold oven, and then I turn the heat on, and while the oven is heating up, it will continue to rise. So I'm going to put it at 325, and we'll check back when it's done. Oh, one thing I didn't do is you can take egg white and put pepitas on the top, but I'm going to save the pepitas that I have for later for making more of this. Okie doke, here's the finished product. And I always take a stick of butter and put it over the top of my bread. But I've got 5 loaves. And the next thing that I do is I'm going to let it cool here for just a little bit. And then they're going to be, I'll put them in bread bags. I bought a bunch of bread sacks because I make my own bread all the time. But while they're still warm, I go ahead and bag them up, and that helps keep the loaves soft.